It was rumored over the weekend for the past several days that President Trump was going to announce an end to President Obama's executive amnesty. So let's start from the very beginning, a very good place to start, and that is what exactly was the executive amnesty in the first place. So if you go back to 2012, President Obama desperately wanted to win the election, and so what he decided to do was give a sop to the Hispanic community, as he viewed it, by basically granting blanket amnesty to so-called dreamers. These would be children of illegal immigrants who arrived as children. They weren't born in the United States. If they'd been born here, they would be citizens. But they were brought to the United States afterward, and they were like 3 or 4 years old or 10 years old when they came here. The restrictions were people who were under the age of 16 when they were brought to the United States and below the age of 31, brought into the country by their parents before 2012, granted new legal status. Presumably, you had to be brought into the country, I guess you wouldn't get a permit unless you'd been in the country since 2007 for some continuous period. And that was the basic rule under the so-called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. And then there was DAPA, which was a program for their parents, the Deferred Action for Parents of Childhood Arrivals. Okay, so all of that was put in place by Obama through an executive order. It never passed through Congress. It was not a piece of legislation. All it really was Obama giving paperwork to people saying that they could work legally in the country and him calling it a refusal to prosecute the law. He said that he was doing this under prosecutorial discretion. His DOJ was not going to prosecute any of these people, and therefore he might as well give them papers. This was challenged in court, and it was basically struck down because the idea was it's one thing for you to say you're not going to prosecute folks. It's another thing for you to give them papers. If you give them papers, it's no longer a question of executive branch power. Now we're talking about something different. We're talking about an affirmative action by the executive branch without legislative approval. That's illegal. So DACA had basically been held up by the courts, but none of the people who had applied through the DACA program were being deported. And one of the things that happened because of all of this is a lot of people who are illegal immigrants went to the government, registered all their information because they were guaranteed a shot at essentially amnesty if they gave the information. The problem was always that if there was a situation where the next president was a Republican and decided to walk this back, now the government knew exactly where to find you if you were an illegal immigrant. Okay, so here is what Trump did. He had a bunch of choices as to what he could do on DACA. I'll explain what I think was the best choice in just a few minutes. But here's what he actually did. He announced that the administration would stop consideration of new applications for legal status beginning tomorrow. So if you were going to apply under DACA for legal status and a work permit, then that you can no longer do that starting tomorrow. Those whose current permits expire between now and March 5th, 2018, which is next March, can apply for a new 2-year permit. They must do so before October 5th, so they have to come along, reapply in the next month or so. Some so-called dreamers will be granted new legal status, others will not. But even after March 5th, which is the deadline for enforcement of DACA, well, that's the deadline where Trump says, okay, it's the drop-dead date, now we're going to start enforcing the law. He really says we're not going to start enforcing the law. He says we're not going to hand out new work permits or anything, but the Trump White House says it will not start deporting dreamers in serious numbers, but will continue to follow the Obama administration's focus on criminals. So basically nothing changed except for we're not going to give paperwork to people. And there's a little bit more uncertainty if you're a dreamer. Maybe Trump will deport you, maybe he won't. In all likelihood, he will not. Okay, a lot of this springs from a key ambiguity in how the right wing feels about illegal immigration and dreamers in particular. And this is a key ambiguity. Trump campaigned loudly and proudly on the idea that we have to have rule of law and these people have to go. It doesn't matter if you were brought here as a child. It's sad, but we as a country have a responsibility to fulfill the needs of our citizens before we start fulfilling the needs of other citizens. You shouldn't have come here illegally. Your parents shouldn't have. And we don't have an obligation as a country to take in anyone, right? That's not our responsibility. That was what Trump said repeatedly during the campaign. At the same time, Trump was saying during the campaign, and particularly afterward, that he wants to keep the dreamers here. So he had this sort of split message. Here was Trump just a few weeks ago talking about how he loves the dreamers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sometime today or over the weekend, we'll have a decision. We love the dreamers. We love everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, we love the dreamers. We love everybody. So he's got these conflicting messages. One is, I want to enforce the law. Two is, we love the dreamers. So here is the split in the Republican Party over Obama's executive amnesty. Everyone sort of wants the executive amnesty gone, but for two different reasons. Reason number one, it's illegal for the executive branch to usurp legislative authority this way. This is the position of Speaker Paul Ryan. This is the position of a lot of the sort of leftists in the Republican Party on illegal immigration. A lot of them say, we sort of like what Obama did, but we don't like that Obama did it, right? Obama should have gone through Congress. We should have passed legislation. This is not something the executive branch gets to do on its own. Fair enough. I agree. It's unconstitutional. And the courts have largely agreed with that as well. The second reason that people disliked Obama's executive amnesty is because they actually didn't like the executive amnesty. Not because it was illegally done, not because it was done in piss-poor manner by the executive branch, but because they don't actually want amnesty for Dreamers. This is Trump's most vocal base. This is people like Ann Coulter. This is people like Steve Bannon. This is people who were really on the Trump train from the earliest point, right? People like Jeff Sessions, the current attorney general. These are people who actually would like to see a lot of Dreamers deported. And this is crystal clear that there is this split in the Republican Party. So Trump now has to make a choice. Is he going to revoke DACA on the first grounds or on the second grounds? In other words, does he really agree with his own base? Does he really want to get rid of DACA and start deporting Dreamers? It's pretty clear that he does not. It's pretty clear that he does not. And it's pretty clear from his policy that he doesn't. Because what it really looks like he's doing right now is he is saying that he's going to get rid of DACA in order to push Congress, in order to actually enshrine DACA, and then maybe as a sop to his base, give him funding for the Trump wall. So this is the trade that Trump is looking for. Trump is looking for this trade. He wants DACA to be replaced, okay, not actually gotten rid of. He wants to see it encoded. He wants to see it enshrined. He wants to see Congress actually make Obama's executive amnesty the law of the land, not through the executive branch. He wants to sign into law the executive amnesty so it's just amnesty, right? Trump actually wants that, but in return, he also wants the Trump wall, and he's hoping that that will be enough of a sop to his base. This is a serious problem. This plan is not going to please anyone. The only people it might please are some of the people who oppose DACA because of the manner in which it was implemented, but they're lefties on immigration, people like Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan might be happy with this particular plan, and in fact, Paul Ryan basically came forward and said, yeah, I think we're going to try and pass something now. But if Trump's legacy in the first year of his presidency is no Obamacare repeal, no tax cuts, no getting rid of the Iran deal, and we will pass a piece of amnesty legislation that is actually stronger than what Obama did, I think a lot of people in his base are going to be pissed, and they have good reason to be pissed off. So here's why everybody is going to be angry from all sides on this particular policy. For the people who are advocates of getting rid of DACA because they actually don't want DACA, because they want the Dreamers deported, Trump clearly doesn't want to deport the Dreamers. And the problem is that Trump has already signaled he doesn't want to deport the Dreamers. So imagine you're a member of Congress, and Trump is coming to you, and he's saying, listen, I'm going to get rid of DACA. I'm getting rid of the executive amnesty, and then I'm going to start deporting people. But if you want those people to stay, all you have to do, April, is give me the Trump wall. That's all you got to do. Just do it, the Trump wall. Imagine you're a Republican member of Congress now. You are in serious trouble because you are stuck between a rock and a hard place. If you vote to give Trump what he wants, your own base will crucify you for having caved on DACA. Your own base will probably primary you for having said that you're going to enshrine DACA. And if you don't give Trump what he wants, then your own base could go after you because you're not giving Trump what he wants. So Trump has put them all in an awkward position, right? And this is a serious problem for the people in the Republican Party. So what's their easiest solution? Their easiest solution is to do nothing, because they know that in the end, Trump actually isn't going to implement his new ban. Trump isn't actually going to deport all these people. So all these Republicans can just sit tight, stay out of the fight, vote for nothing, and then 6 months pass, and then Trump basically does nothing, and everything goes back to normal, and whatever, right? That's the easiest solution. No Trump wall, no nothing, no legislation. Republicans don't want to have to affirmatively own the executive amnesty. They don't want to have to do that. But Trump wants them to do that so that they'll give him the Trump wall, and also because then it's not on him, right? Then it's not Trump's responsibility for not getting rid of the executive amnesty. It's all Congress's responsibility for not getting rid of the executive amnesty. So basically, Trump is kicking the can down the road because he doesn't want to take responsibility for getting rid of the executive amnesty in the first place, right? Trump wants to make a deal, and Trump's deal is not something his base is going to be happy with. Okay, so I've already discussed the people who want to get rid of DACA, like really want to get rid of it. They're going to be upset because Trump doesn't actually want to get rid of DACA. He just wants to make Congress re-enshrine DACA and then give him the Trump wall as some sort of sop. People like Ann Coulter are not going to be happy with this. And they shouldn't be happy with this. If they are, they're being disingenuous, because Trump is basically saying that he is not going to deport Dreamers. Okay, that was not what he ran on. Okay, then there are a bunch of people who love DACA, right? These are people like John McCain. They're not going to be happy because they're going to suggest, okay, well, if you're just going to reinstall DACA in the first place, why not just leave Obama's policies in place? Right? Why are we going through this whole rigmarole? Why are we putting uncertainty in the heads of all these dreamers who are going to get to stay in the first place? Why are you destroying the credibility of the party on this question? You're not going to get rid of these folks. So what exactly is the political move here? That's what people like John McCain are saying. And on the left, of course, the left is always going to claim that Trump is a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, even if Trump didn't actually change anything here. And by the way, Trump didn't really change much here. Okay, dreamers are not being deported. The White House says that they are only going after what they call criminals, not illegal immigrants. Criminal illegal immigrants, people who have committed an additional crime besides being here illegally. Not what Trump ran on. Okay, so Trump is not actually getting rid of DACA. This is very much like the healthcare debate. It's very much like Trump care. Trump was basically saying, I'm getting rid of Obamacare. He wasn't getting rid of Obamacare, and then no Republican wanted to go on record as having re-enshrined Obamacare, and so Trump care failed. This is almost the exact same thing. You can see the exact same math playing out. Again, because Trump won't take ownership of this. Trump was not willing to take a hard position here. He wasn't either willing to come out and say full scale, listen, I like the dream. I like DACA. DACA's good. So here's the deal. Let's just pass DACA. He's not willing to say that because he knows his base will go after him. And he's also not willing to own his own hardline immigration position, the one that he sold during the campaign, that we're going to deport everybody who's not here illegally. He's not actually willing to take that stand. So how exactly does all this play out? Well, it plays out with nothing happening, basically, because Republicans are split on DACA. The chances that a piece of legislation passes here, a big piece of amnesty legislation passes with solely Republican support is low. Democrats have no incentive to actually pass anything. Democrats want to run on this. There's a lot of optimistic thinking from people like my friend Hugh Hewitt that Democrats may jump on board and pass a piece of bipartisan legislation with Trump re-enshrining DACA. They're not going to. Democrats want to run on this in 2018. They love the vice that Republicans are now caught in. Republicans are caught between their base and the general public. The general public is basically okay with the dreamers. The base really is not. That means that all of these Republicans are now going to be forced to go on record with either a very unpopular position with their base or a very unpopular position with the general public. Okay, this is bad politics. Now, the reason it's particularly bad politics is because there is a better solution. There's a far easier solution. Okay, this one was suggested by Byron York of the Washington Examiner, who's a big Trump fan. Okay, Byron York suggests there's a very simple solution here, and he is totally right. That is, instead of Trump coming out and having Jeff Sessions make a statement about getting rid of Obama's executive amnesty, instead, Trump simply could have used the same strategy that Obama used on same-sex marriage. If you recall, Obama's strategy on same-sex marriage was not to come out personally and endorse some sort of executive action, right? That's not what Obama actually did. What Obama actually did was something very different. What he did was he waited for a bunch of states to sue, and then he said, we're not going to defend traditional marriage. We're not going to defend it in court. Right? I'm not going to make Eric Holder defend traditional marriage in court. And then the Supreme Court said, oh, well, there's nobody who's actually defending traditional marriage, so we'll strike down traditional marriage. Right? This is what Obama did with same-sex marriage. Trump could have done exactly the same thing with the executive amnesty. Like beat for beat, note for note. He could have done the exact same thing. All Trump had to do was just wait for all of these lawsuits against DACA to go forward, wait for DACA to be struck down, and then say, listen, guys, if you want DACA back, just pass a piece of legislation that includes funding for the Trump wall. That would have been his smartest move. He could have waited for DACA to be struck down, say nothing, keep his mouth shut, and then he could have gone forward, DACA would have been dead, and now it's up to Congress to fix the problem. Instead, Trump has taken this weird position where he struck down DACA on procedural grounds, but not on substantive grounds, and his fans want him to strike it down on substantive grounds. Trump would have all the leverage. Once the courts got rid of Obama's executive amnesty, Trump would have every bit of leverage, all the leverage, not some of it, all of it. Because then we'd go back to the system beforehand and Trump wouldn't have even said anything yet. Right? Trump could have had a credible threat. Listen, there's no law in the books preventing me from doing this. I don't have to get rid of executive amnesty. Executive amnesty was illegal. And listen, we have to enforce the law. That's what the law is on the books. So guys, either fix it or go home. Fix it and give me my wall. Right? That's not what Trump did here. So this is actually really bad strategy. It's actually very poor strategy, particularly going into a midterm. And what it comes from is, for President Trump, I think, a deep and abiding need not to be the bad guy. I mean, this is actually one of the things that's sort of fascinating about President Trump as a person, is that Trump does not want to be the bad guy in any given scenario. He doesn't actually like firing people. For a guy who likes firing people and it plays the bad guy on TV a lot, he doesn't actually like doing the dirty work of punching someone. He doesn't actually like doing it. When he got rid of James Comey, he tried to put it on his Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. When he got rid of Mike Flynn, he tried to make it look like Flynn was resigning. when he got rid of Steve Bannon. He tried to make it look like Bannon was resigning. Like, every move that Trump makes is designed to shift responsibility to someone else. On this one, he's trying to shift responsibility to Congress. Well, he could have done that without even getting his hands dirty. But what he's doing by doing this so obviously is he's trying to posture for his base, saying, listen, I'd get rid of DACA, but this Congress, it's up to them now. I don't know. Right? By shifting responsibility to Congress, he's avoiding the responsibility of having to take a position. And that's not good, because without that presidential leadership, DACA will be enshrined. Okay, Congress will try to pass something. And you could see a situation very easily where Speaker Ryan, Mitch McConnell, they actually decide to put forward bills with Democrat support enshrining DACA, or they decide to let this thing go all the way for 6 months, and then Trump has the situation back on his hands. You can see Congress kick the ball right back to Trump, and then Trump says, well, and then we just go on the way we were before. If you're Trump's base, I don't know that you can be happy with this. Like, if you're going to be intellectually honest, I don't think that you can be particularly happy with this. And again, I'm the guy who wrote the headline a week and a half ago when Trump was talking about getting rid of executive amnesty. I'm the guy who a week and a half ago said that that was a good thing worth doing. But it's only good and worth doing if you're willing to enforce the law or replace it with a better law. It's not worth doing if your entire goal here is just to sort of posture about it and then go right back to the same enforcement policy that Obama had. That's not good, and it's certainly not a good policy if you want Congress to enshrine executive amnesty as the law, right? It's not good on Trump. It's not good on Ryan. It's not good on McConnell. It's really it's laid out about as poorly as you can. I wish I could say that Trump was doing a beautiful job with this, but I just don't think he is. I think that he's unwilling to face up to the conflict inside the Republican Party and take a hard position, so he split the baby. Splitting the baby in politics is basically the worst possible strategy. One thing for you to say you're not going to prosecute folks. It's another thing for you to give them papers. If you give them papers, it's no longer a question of executive branch power. Now we're talking about something different. We're talking about an affirmative action by the executive branch without legislative approval. That's illegal. So DACA had basically been held up by the courts, but none of the people who had applied through the DACA program were being deported. And one of the things that happened because of all of this is a lot of people who are illegal immigrants went to the government, registered all their information because they were guaranteed a shot at essentially amnesty if they gave the information. The problem was it was rumored over the weekend for the past several days that President Trump was going to announce an end to President Obama's executive amnesty. So let's start from the very beginning, a very good place to start, and that is what exactly was the executive amnesty in the first place. So if you go back to 2012, President Obama desperately wanted to win the election. And so what he decided to do was give a sop to the Hispanic community, as he viewed it, by basically granting blanket amnesty to so-called dreamers. These would be children of illegal immigrants who arrived as children. They weren't born in the United States. If they'd been born here, they would be citizens. But they were always that if there was a situation where the next president was a Republican and decided to walk this back, now the government knew exactly where to find you if you were an illegal immigrant. Okay, so here is what Trump did. He had a bunch of choices as to what he could do on DACA. I'll explain what I think was the best choice in just a few minutes. But here's what he actually did. He announced that the administration would stop consideration of new applications for legal status beginning tomorrow. So if you were going to apply under DACA for legal status and a work permit, then that you can no longer do that starting tomorrow. Those whose current program, and then there was DAPA, which was a program for their parents, the Deferred Action for Parents of Childhood Arrivals. Okay, so all of that was put in place by Obama through an executive order. It never passed through Congress. It was not a piece of legislation. All it really was Obama giving paperwork to people saying that they could work legally in the country and him calling it a refusal to prosecute the law. He said that he was doing this under prosecutorial discretion. His DOJ was not going to prosecute any of these people, and therefore he might as well give them papers. This was challenged in court, and it was basically struck down because the idea was it's brought to the United States afterward, and they were like 3 or 4 years old or 10 years old when they came here. The restrictions were people who were under the age of 16 when they were brought to the United States and below the age of 31, brought into the country by their parents before 2012, granted new legal status. Presumably you had to be brought into the country, I guess you wouldn't get a permit unless you'd been in the country since 2007 for some continuous period. That was the basic rule under the so-called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program.